I mean, you mentioned the Johnny Bench thing, and that's stood since 1970. And he's blitzed past that. He's already 4 homers past it. He's still got some games to go. And then the other one is Barry Bonds in a steroid-fueled 2001 hit 39 before the All-Star break, and that's the record. And he's at 32 already. So I think that he's certainly etching up on history. I think that the even more amazing thing is his career high is 34, and he's got 32.
It's time for Sportsnaut's MLB podcast. Big League Buzz, news and interviews from around the majors. Here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Hello and welcome to the Big League Buzz, the MLB podcast from Sportsnaut. I am your host, Scott Gulbransen, and today we welcome our guest, Ryan Phillips, senior writer at Sports Illustrated, and we're here to talk about the Seattle Mariners catching sensation Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, as they call him. Thanks for being with us today, Ryan.
No, thanks for having me, Scott.
All right, so listen, your latest piece up on Sports Illustrated, which we've linked here on the video, you make a compelling case for Cal Raleigh as potentially the MVP in baseball, even though Aaron Judge and his standout stats, we see all that. Of course, he's a Yankee too, so he's always going to get all the love. How significantly does Raleigh's role as a catcher? This is one of the things I didn't really think about at first, but then I'm reading your piece and you bring it up at length there. But him as a catcher and his MVP candidacy compared to other players who play maybe less defensively demanding positions. How do you weigh this kind of positional value when you're starting to think about Cal Raleigh and if he continues on this trajectory in 2025?
Well, when you look at the most valuable player, it is a value judgment. And compared to other catchers, his value is through the roof. I think Will Smith is second in WAR at this point, FWAR with 3.1. Well, Raleigh's at 5.4. Hitting catchers are not a thing in Major League Baseball right now. And so guys who can hit and can provide value on both ends. And on the other end, Raleigh won a platinum glove last year as a really good defensive catcher. So I think that his relative value to his position does extend how valuable he is as a player. Obviously, Judge bests him on a lot of the numbers on, OPS and slugging and all of that stuff. But I would say, and overall WAR as well, FWAR. But I would say that his value as a catcher certainly is. I mean, having a hitting catcher is a cheat code in Major League Baseball right now. You're so far ahead of the game, whereas other outfielders hit in the region of Aaron Judge. They're not as good as Aaron Judge, but in the region. So I do think that warrants more consideration given the relative value he provides, not just to the Mariners, but from his position as well.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And you talk about that, though, being a catcher. And we all know, for those of us who follow baseballs closely, and you've written about it for a long time now, it's the position breaks you down. What's his view, or what's your view on his long-term sustainability as one of baseball's elite players if he's still playing a catcher?
It probably isn't going to last that much longer, but I think that as long as he is doing it, the Mariners for themselves have to continue to use him there. I think that there will be an eventual time where they have to make a decision on that, and where you have to maybe give him more DH days, give him more, shift him over to first base, something like that. But certainly to lengthen his career, and he signed a contract extension that I know. I think he wishes he didn't sign if you break it down, given that he's having the biggest year of his career and he signed it before this season. But I think that eventually you have to make that decision to move somebody off catcher. Buster Posey was the same way. The guy looked like he was going to be great forever, and then all of a sudden just fell off a cliff on both ends and wound up retiring pretty young. I think that happens. And so I think that the Mariners are going to try and wring as much value out of him as a catcher as they can before finally making a switch to get him some fewer days behind the plate.
Yeah, we'll talk about his contract in a second. But one of the things, too, that you mentioned in the story, and if people aren't familiar so much with what's going on with Cal Raleigh, is already etching his name in the record books. He surpassed Johnny Bench's first half home run mark for catchers. And you said he's sort of on the verge of setting other records with sort of no sign of slowing down. At his current pace, what do you think? Do you think he can challenge Salvi Perez's single season home run record, which was 48 in 2021? And what would that milestone mean for his place in baseball history, even this early in his career?
Well, if Salvi Perez is attached to that record, I think he should be getting pretty nervous. I mean, Raleigh's got 32 and the record is 48. So he's not that far off unless something catastrophic happens. But, I mean, you mentioned the Johnny Bench thing, and that's stood since 1970, and he's blitzed past that. He's already 4 homers past it, and he's still got some games to go. And then the other one is Barry Bonds in a steroid fueled 2001 hit 39 before the All-Star break. And that's the record. And he's at 32 already. So I think that he's certainly etching up on history. I think that the even more amazing thing is his career high is 34 and he's got 32. And he set that last year. And last year, his WAR through 153 games was 5.4. That's where it is right now at the All-Star break. So he's really starting to hit some other things. You'd have to look at long-term, what's the best season by a catcher ever statistically. He's certainly going to challenge all those. I don't think that's a question. The question is just how much does he wear down by September? Again, as you mentioned, catching and doing this offensive barrage.
Well, look at it. What do you think the Mariners are going to do about that? Do you think there might be a time as we get later in the season that they're going to spell him a little bit, put him at DH, or does he, like you said earlier, does it mean so much to that team defensively that they're not even going to go there?
Well, knowing what we know about Cal Raleigh, I think it's going to be really hard for them to convince him to take some days off from behind the plate. But I do think if you, rather than a normal catcher's day off, you can move him to DH, instead of giving him the full day. And so I think that's probably what they'll do and mix that in a little bit. But I think that, yeah, you've got to keep him back there as much as you can, especially if you're in contention. That you've got to get as much value as you can. Because again, he's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. So having him not back there doesn't just it rests him, but it also takes away from your pitching staff and it takes away from your defense as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, he just signed that 6-year, 105, million dollar contract extension before the season. And it's one of those situations you see a player like this who does that, goes out and has a big season. You talk about a financial bargain here. I mean, how big of a bargain is this? And at some point, does Cal Raleigh start to say, wait a minute? And I know a contract's a contract, and there's people out there who watch baseball. It's like, oh, you signed a contract. But if this guy continues on this pace, hasn't this record-setting year, which we all think he will, especially the home run mark there for catchers, what happens here? Is there any possibility that there starts to be some sort of ill will here?
I don't know. I mean, baseball players tend not to do that. That's an NFL thing where you hold out from training camp, you get your renegotiated. Baseball, and I don't know if it's the union's really strong of, hey, you've signed this contract. They want you to make as much as you want, but they don't want to set the precedent of guys doing that. So, I mean, if you look at it, the average annual value of that contract is going to be about 17.5 million. That's nothing to sneeze at. 6 years, we'd all be very excited with that. But he probably could have made about 30 million a year if he had signed it after this season. And so maybe eventually the Mariners, as a courtesy, say like, let's give you a little bump here, but I don't know. I mean, it just tends not to happen. And again, he's going to get 105 million, but that is that contract. The Mariners look like geniuses for doing that contract before the season. And I mean, and Raleigh's only 28, so there should be plenty of years left of high level play. So good on Seattle for getting that contract done. A lot of teams will wait till the guy's about on the verge of free agency, and Raleigh had 2 years left after this one before he hit it. So they really made a strong decision to go do that and signed him up.
Yeah, and with the trajectory he's on too, you got to figure there might be some other money coming his way in the way of endorsements and all these things, especially with the season he's having. Now, what is it though with Cal Raleigh? We've talked about the stats, we talked about what he's done, but what's the personality? What is the drive there for this guy? What makes him different? We know about his nickname, the Big Dumper, all the stuff. So there seems to be a lot of I think harmony in that locker room with him, and that he is sort of a kind of a leader there, even where he's at in his career. So what's the makeup of Cal Raleigh? What makes him who he is?
Well, I think he's a very self-aware guy, and I think that he enjoys sort of that there is sort of a goofy persona around him. He doesn't seem to be too serious. He seems to be enjoying himself. And I think that's going to help him as he goes on this year if he's not, stressing about numbers and stressing about this historic season. And he seems to be kind of enjoying, the process of going through it. And again, yeah, I think that the Mariners all love him. The media loves him up there. The people love him. I think that, they've really embraced him. And I think that will make his chase of this easier. It won't be a constant 24-hour media barrage either in Seattle if he's chasing history.
Now we sit here, Ryan, today, and we look at the Mariners in that AL West, 6.5 games back. So still there. They're a couple games over 500. With the trade deadline coming now in about a month, Do you anticipate the Mariners to be active, depending where we see what we see in the next couple of weeks, and what might they do to bolster the lineup around Cal Raleigh to fix a little bit some of that pitching staff so that they can make a run at the AL West title?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need bats and they're going to need pitching just like everybody else. I think that, what you do specifically is going to depend on what's available. I always say that to people about, what was my team going to do at the deadline? Well, it takes two to tango on a trade. So it's really going to depend on what's available, who's willing to trade. And I think that right now the trade market is interesting because so many teams think they're in it. And so I think it's going to be very difficult the prices are going to be very high for everybody. And the Mariners, as far as prospect capital, they have some, but they don't have what some other teams have. So I think what they're going to have to do is see how close they are and then start to work around the margins and get, not bench bats, but guys that are a little lower on the totem pole, maybe get another pitcher or two, but not, I don't think they're going to be able to be out there for the top level guys. I just don't think they have the prospect capital that others do. And then you're going to have to lean on guys like Wu and Castillo to get you through the season with pitching and hope that Raleigh and Rodriguez and those guys can lead from the front. So I think that, if you're a Mariners fan and you're targeting that, I would say that if they're in contention, they can make a move, but I think that not to expect a big name coming to Seattle.
Yeah, we know how big that depth on the bench and in the bullpen is when you get into postseason play, so it'll be big. Ryan Phillips from Sports Illustrated, senior writer there. Great story there. You can find it linked below. Follow him on X at Rumors and Rants, at Rumors and Rants. Ryan, thanks for being with us here on Big League Buzz.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right, there you have it. This edition of Big League Buzz talking about Cal Raleigh. I don't know if you've watched him yet. I get it. If you're not a Mariners fan, it might not have registered. But let me tell you, this guy is having a special season, as we talked about, already far surpassing what Johnny Bench did in the first half of the season. He already broke that record for home runs by a catcher in half a season. He's only 14 or 16 behind Johnny Bench to break Salvador Perez's record. Of course, the Royals in 2021 had that great season. So this guy, if you haven't watched him and he comes on TV, watch it at the very least when you're looking online, looking on that phone, looking at the stats, watching for stories on Major League Baseball and Sportsnaut.com. Check out what he's doing. Check out his stats every day. Watch this. It's a special year. And again, as Ryan Phillips said, the idea of a catcher doing this is so remarkable because the position is so demanding. And it's really fun. It's good to see this. And again, the Mariners, what a great deal for them, signing him to that $105 million contract. And then he's coming out and having this amazing record-setting year. That's what we do here at Big League Buzz, is we get you up to date on the latest from around the entire league. We all have our favorite teams, no question. But this is the place where you're going to get interviews from people all around the league, guys and gals who cover the league, to interviewing coaches. We had Brett Boone on a little while ago, as you know, just a few weeks ago. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Certainly, please rate and review us there. You can get it anywhere you find your podcast. Also, you can catch us out on the Sportsnaut YouTube channel. So go over there, subscribe as well, and you can watch the podcast if you're listening to it right now. We appreciate you being with us. For everybody here at Sportsnaut, this has been Big League Buzz. I'm Scott Branson, and don't forget, keep swinging for the fences.